All right, welcome everybody. It is day 11. Yeah, day 11, day one of week three. Welcome. All right, so for question of the day today, yeah, I like this one. So, what is your favorite local dish, maybe, or what's your favorite restaurant in Guam? And I want to say or restaurant in Guam because it could be a restaurant that's not. Um, and so I'll start out. And I wanted to say that because I think my favorite restaurant right now isn't local. So my girlfriend and I, as I mentioned, pho, us liking pho. Our favorite thing right now has been Pho Bolsa in it's our favorite restaurant. We just get like thinly sliced beef pho, and it's just so delicious. And she was sick over the weekend. Actually, all of us were sick. Okay, wait, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just sick for like 3 times. Sorry about that. Oh yeah. So yeah, our favorite right now, my favorite restaurant in Guam. It's not a local place. It's Pho Bolsa. It's because I love their beef pho. It's in Harmon, kind of near where this new Super Happy Mart is. Yeah, right now it's my favorite. Kiko, you're the first on my screen. Please feel free to share your favorite local dish or restaurant in Guam.
Uh, Super local OG spot. If anyone knows where Lighthouse is in the Canyon,
I love that place too.
it's a Korean. It's Korean, dude. But if anyone knows that place, what makes it my favorite spot is the old man's very grumpy, and if he's not in a bad mood, the food's not gonna taste very good. It's a very different style of eating. Like he's not rude, but he's just quiet, and it makes you feel like like damn, do I should I be here right now or But man, that place never fails, and it's one of the best spots that I to be honest here on Guam. That would be mine. Next would be Alana because you're the first on my screen.
So my one of my favorite restaurants that I always go to is CPK. I love CPK, but I'm kind of craving like manang pika, their birria melt. It's so two of my favorites. And I choose Ron.
Man, it's so hard to pick, but I guess my favorite place currently right now would be Carabao. I don't know. Good drinks, good chesa. And then I'll pass it on to Junior.
Let's see. All good restaurants already picked um barbecue stand in Dededo. They got the best pancit on island. It's champ. So if you get your barbecue plate there, they fill up that pancit and it's good enough to feed like two of my kids. So I get some good value there. Let's go with who's left? Adrian.
This is a hard one. Okay, it's a tie between Ture and Moses. Moses is Loco Moco, and Ture's, for me personally, it's their Pacific Salmon Burger. Um, it's ironic that you mentioned it because I went to Ture la yesterday for my niece's first birthday. So yeah, that place has really good food, local food. that one's good for a budget too, but Moses is way more expensive. But yeah, again, Toure. Toure I would pick between the two. Matt.
Hello. Oh, so I'd say my favorite restaurant would be Shirley's. Yeah. So I get the Portuguese sausage with fried rice and an over easy egg. Yeah.
Super solid answers. Thank you all for sharing. Most of those places I've ate at, but there's actually a couple I haven't. So taking note, I'm gonna have to try them out. Thank you all. All right, cool. So let's go through hotkey of the day. Okay. So for today's hotkey of the day, it's gonna be some of you guys probably know this, but some people I've seen that some people they'll like highlight and then like right click to copy or paste some stuff. And I just find whether you know it or not, I want to share that Command C or Control C and Command V or Control V. So basically copy and paste. And so for example, whatever I highlight, if I do Command C or on Windows, it would be Control. And then I go down here wherever I want it. I do Command V or Control V for Windows, and I can paste it. And there's, I guess, even kind of one more to build upon there. If I wanted to cut something, which that means to copy it and delete it from there, because then I'm going to move it somewhere else, I can do Command V. I mean, Command X or Control X on Windows. So for example, if I wanted to grab this else block and I'm going to do Command X, and then now I can go wherever I want and do Command V, and that would paste it. So basically it's copy and paste or cut and paste, depending on what it is you're trying to do. And I find it really, really helpful. And this is not something specific to VS Code. This is, I want to say universal. I want to say all like Google Docs, Google Sheets, Microsoft Word, Slack, anything like that. Yeah. So that is today's hotkey of the day. So it's Command V or Command or Control C and then V to paste or Command or Control X and then V again, depending on what you're doing. Okay, and I will put that in the chat. That. Oh, I didn't see that. I'm gonna take a look at that, Adrian. Sorry, I didn't see that yet. Keys. Control. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I want to do, I want to do open the floor for any volunteers to go through the homework. Volunteers.
I'm not gonna volunteer because mine doesn't work.
No worries. If you did want to, I'm not saying to, but if anyone wants to volunteer and their stuff isn't working, that's completely fine, and we could use yours as a demo for work for what's it called, debugging it and maybe trying to fix it, and then we can see how it works. So if there's anyone whose stuff doesn't work, happy to do that too. If not, let me see. Let me grab mine. Where is it at? It's here. Yeah, here's my solution from what's it called? When I made this exercise. I'm gonna create, so we're not in week 2 anymore. Let me pull up my terminal. This one. ls make week 3 cd week cd week 3. Open that up. Okay, cool. So here is my solution. And let's just make sure it works. I haven't ran it in a little bit actually. Ruby practice 1. All right, cool. Address book menu, add a contact. So I can click 1. Let's say I'm gonna go in order. First one on my screen is Alana now. I'm gonna go Alana, phone number 123456, email alana@test.com. All right, cool. Let me try to view all my contacts. Perfect. There, if I view them, we can see there's Alana. If I wanted to, let's just add one more. Next person on the screen is Matt. 32145, whatever. Matt@test.com. If I wanted to search, I can click 3. I can enter the name of my contacts. Let's go Alana. Perfect. So there's Alana's name. We were able to find her contact, and then I can exit. I didn't do the delete. Okay, and to go through the code, so this case one, I guess everything here is kind of the same as what we've been doing. We have this def display menu. We have our contacts, empty contacts right at the beginning. We call display menu to show this to the user because we want to show them the different options. We get their, what's it called? Get the user's input, change it to an integer because their choice needs to be an integer based on our conditionals. And then, so this case one, this is exactly the same as the if else. It's just this is a different way to put it. So case, we're saying, we're specifically saying the condition is the choice. And so we're saying when the choice is 1, then it's do this. When the choice is 2, then do this. When the choice is 3, do this, etc. So it's pretty much exactly the same thing. It's just instead of us writing it like this, instead of going if choice equals 1, else if choice equals 2, else if choice equals 3, etc. We're just saying, hey, we're listening out for the choice. Based on this is what we're gonna do something. We're gonna do something different. So if the choice is 1, when it's 1, do this. When it's 2, do this, etc. So it's a little bit less writing. We don't have to write this condition every single time since we're looking out for a specific, we're listening out for something really specific like that. And this could also be a condition. We could do like if 1 equals what something equals test or whatever. We could put a condition here, but basically the point I'm trying to make here is case 1, this type of condition is the exact same as if else, else if, else, whatever. It's just different way to write it, and it's a little bit less writing. And ultimately, it's up to you on which one you want to do. This is another scenario where it's preference on which one do you want to use. Do you want to use a regular if, else, end, or do you want to use a case when? Yeah. Any questions on the idea of case 1? Okay, let me know if you guys do. And then from there, everything else here is kind of the same. If they want to add something, prompt for the name, prompt for the phone number, prompt for their email, put that into a contacts array, put that it's added. So push all of that information into a contacts array, and then it's added. One thing to note here is that with our previous implementation of this kind of the same idea in the last one, we did something like this. We did item equals, and then we did all of the stuff. So pretty much it would have looked like this. Something like this. And then instead of pushing that in, we pushed item. So this is what we did last time. So doing this versus just doing, let's do this. Oh, doing these 2 lines versus just directly putting it into a hash like this, like writing out the hash and writing it in, these are exactly the same thing. Again, this is just preference, maybe readability. It's kind of up to you on how you do it. So versus if you explicitly create it and then push that the variable name of the item versus if you push the actual data structure itself, doesn't matter. It's the same exact thing. Yeah, we already know how the view works. View is pretty straightforward. If it's empty, no context found. If it's not, then go ahead and put like a name, email, and phone number. And then the, what's it called? For the search, we've kind of went through this a little bit before, but we're using .find, and we can go into more detail about that later. And then everything else is just exactly the same. I'm going to share this solution with you guys, and if you guys have any questions on any part of it, obviously feel free to let me know or Lana, and yeah, we can go through it. So, solution. And if for whatever reason any of you guys' stuff isn't working and you guys want to work through it together, feel free to let us know and we're happy to. Junior, yes.
Sorry. So I guess the big thing that was just it messed me all up was the number three, the search one. And it was I tried to do the logic, and the problem that I would always come up is, say if I had two or three contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I search for the hash with the name, right? And the problem would happen when, say, it would find the third contact. It would say something like it's not found. Because there's a if it's found, then print it out, right? And then the else is like if it didn't find, it'll say contact not found.
Yes.
It would always go through everything. So even if it found it, it would say it found the person, but then it goes contact not found, contact not found. It's like my if else thing just didn't break as soon as it found someone. It
Interesting.
just kept, yeah, it kept going. I don't know, like that's why I was gonna go look at your code, but that was just my big thing, and it messed up the whole remove thing too. Like it
Okay.
would say it's not found, and it would always remove the first thing. Like I put contact A, contact B. I say search for B, it'll say B not found, A removed, something like that. I don't know. It was
Got you. Well, I mean, um, as we have a little bit of time today, I'd love to take a look and we can see if we can figure it out together. Yeah,
okay.
I got you. So maybe during one of the exercises. Cool. And if there's anything else anyone's running into, let me know. Lon and I happy to take a look at it. Okay. So let's go ahead. Let me pull this up for what we're doing today. Okay. Okay, yeah. We're gonna go through some error handling stuff today. Maybe I'm gonna start naming my files better. Error handling.rb. And then when we move on to something else, I'll call it something else. Yeah, and the video that I'm gonna make about pushing up your code, it's gonna be using this specific what's it called? Thing. Folder. Gosh, I was having a blank. Week 3. It's gonna use this folder. Okay, so error handling. This is what we're gonna go through today. All right. So errors are kind of like it's to me it's like it's a natural part of programming. You're going to run into errors. I'm pretty sure everyone here has run into a bunch of different errors as you guys are building different things or trying different things out. And so it's something that for one we need to understand. Like it's good to obviously read and understand the errors to make sure you're properly like being okay. because if you read it, a lot of times you're able to kind of it'll help you to figure out what's going on. Sometimes the errors aren't the nicest, but still I think it's nice to see it to help you to kind of debug what's going on, and you can look some stuff up about it or ask questions about it, etc. Yeah, so it happens when something unexpected happens in your code. Like maybe you don't have an end, maybe you named it wrong, or whatever it may be. And so we're going to kind of discuss the different errors that we might see together with how we can potentially solve them, or how maybe prepare for them, prepare our code for them. So that way it isn't going to give a really ugly error, or it isn't going to break our code in the way that it usually has been. Okay. So, and actually, maybe before we do that, I kind of want to go through two different types of errors really quick, two different like general types of errors. And I'm not expecting you guys to memorize this, but if you guys ever hear these things, at least you'll be like, okay, I've kind of heard of that before, and you have a decent idea of kind of what's going on. So there's the two different types of errors we're going to go through are syntax errors and runtime exceptions. Runtime exceptions. Okay, so a syntax error. So a syntax error we can think of as something dealing with the syntax. So maybe when we aren't following Ruby's syntax rules. For example, not putting an end, or something like that. Basically, this would be an example of a syntax error. And so to show you guys exactly what that would look like, if I was to go and write a condition, or let's do a function, def greet, and then I do puts hello. I'm sorry, not is this, but this is going to error out. And the reason it's going to error out is because we have a syntax error. We aren't following Ruby's syntax rules. And here, this is an example. And so as a result, it's going to give us an error. So if we try to run this, I go ruby error handling.rb, we're going to get a syntax error right there. It says syntax error. Unexpected end of input, expecting end or dummy end. I'm not sure, to be honest, what a dummy end is. I'm assuming it's something that mimics an end. I've never had to deal with the one though. But really what I'm looking here is it was expecting an end. And so what I have to do to fix it is literally write my end. Now if I run it, there's no errors because this function's never called, but there's no errors, which is the point. That's the big point here. And so this is the first example of a syntax error. And so this is an example of it. This isn't like the only syntax error there is. Okay, cool. Another thing about this is that it's detected before the program runs. And what I mean by this is, as you guys saw, if I remove this, it's like before anything even happens, it's erroring out. It's not letting me, if I tried to, let's try this out. I don't think it'll run puts hello first. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we can see that this is happening before the program even runs, and we know that because if this was running in order and then it errored out, then we would see the puts hello here, but we do not see the puts hello here because we had a syntax error, and syntax errors are detected before the program runs. And I'll show you guys what it looks like for a program to run and then error out in just a second. Okay, the other thing, actually, those are kind of the main points with syntax errors. Let's go through the next example of a runtime exception. So this occurs when the program is running, caused by unexpected events. Example would be like dividing by 0, or accessing something that does not exist. And so I feel like everybody here has seen this error where we're trying to access something that doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is, what if I just type the word something? If I typed in the word something, it doesn't say runtime exception, because now there's like kind of specific errors dealing with these type of errors. But we can see we're getting undefined local variable method something. And so if I uncomment this puts hello, perfect. We see it says hello, and then it errors out. And so the point I'm trying to make here is with this syntax error, it's detected before the program even runs. I believe the reason why this is because it's detecting it when it compiles technically. And so before the code can't even compile technically. By compile, the way this works is Ruby is a language, or I think pretty much every language is it gets compiled into something that the computer can actually understand. So like ones and zeros, technically, we'll say. And so with that being said, when the code is converted into that ones and zeros, the syntax error is not going to let it compile properly, giving us that syntax error and forcing it to not run any of the code in the file. Versus with a runtime exception, the code compiled properly. There's no syntax errors or anything like that that's going to stop the code from running. However, once the code attempts to go, that's where we're going to get the error. And that's exactly why if I do uncommon this one again and try to run this, we do not see a hello because it never even got to running the code because it's a syntax error that failed during when the code is being compiled. Versus with a runtime exception, if I comment this out and run something this is gonna error out, again, we can see the hello first and then we get the error because the error happens after it. But it allows the code to run first. So I just wanted to quickly touch on these two ideas. If this kind of goes away from you guys' memory after this, that's completely so it's okay. But as long as you guys have seen it, and when this does come up again, where you guys might need to understand these for whatever reason, at least you guys have seen it before. That's my big thing here. Okay, does anybody have any questions about these two ideas first before we move on? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's do this. All right. So we are going to go through some stuff, or Ruby provides us some, I guess it's kind of like a condition. These methods will say to handle errors nicely. And so we're going to go through begin, rescue, and ensure. Those are the three keywords that I want us to, these are to me the more important stuff for you guys to remember today, right now. So begin, rescue, and ensure. And so basically these three keywords are Ruby's way of helping us to handle exceptions, handle errors. And so it allows us to, I guess, manage errors in a more graceful way without crashing the program. And by crashing the program, so right here, for example, with this error, it ran this code, and then if there was stuff below it, it would never get to it because it errored out. So for example, going back to this example, so puts hello, and then I'm just going to do puts hello again right here. So this is going to run, it should do both. It says hello and a hello again. However, if we add this error, if we try to call something and run this again, we see it only does hello, and then it has that error that breaks the code. And so it never gets to run this part of the code. And so that's the idea with this begin, rescue, and ensure, is it allows us to a way to handle that error that we received without really stopping the code and allowing the code to kind of continue to run. We're going to give a nicer error and we're going to handle it like, hey, we already understood that might happen. So we're going to handle it so that way the code can continue running. That's kind of the idea with this begin, rescue, and ensure. Okay, so for example, I'm going to create a method. I'm going to create a method called divide numbers. And it's going to take in A and B. I'm going to put my end to make sure I don't get a syntax error. And then I'm going to go in here and let's just do puts test. I just want to make sure it works. If I call divide numbers, passing in 1, 2, run the code, cool. We see this is working. And so now I'm going to go ahead and put the logic. So for example, I'm going to go result equals A divided by B. And then I'm going to return that result. Let's go ahead and start with this. And let me make these better. 2 and 1. Let's do 10 and 2. Sorry. We should get 5. I need to print it out. Sorry about that. Cool. So we get 5. However, what if I was to do 10 divided by 0? What is going to happen? Cool. We got this error. We got this zero division error. And it again, this is an error that is going to stop the code. If I had some code down here, p hello, whatever, it'll never get here because we're erroring out. It's erroring out. And so we're going to add begin and rescue and technically ensure to make sure that, hey, even if we get that error, don't stop the code. Go ahead and continue running the code. That's the idea with it. So for example, I'm going to, let me just go ahead and comment that out, leave that there. And I'm going to go begin. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to use this result equals A divided by B. And then I'm going to go rescue. And in the rescue block, I want to rescue specifically a zero division error. And if we get that error, do puts error, you cannot divide by zero. Oh, by zero. I'm going to say the result equals nil. And then I'm going to put my end. And then finally, I'm going to return the result. Okay, so the way this is going to work, and maybe I'll just delete this too, why not? It's redundant now. So the way this is going to work is we call this function divide numbers, passing in our arguments 10 and 0. Our function then receives it. A and B are now 10 and 0. And so then we're going to begin the rescue block. We're going to begin the code basically. This just basically says, hey, this is where it begins. And so we're going to go begin, result equals A divided by B. If we get a zero division error specifically, then it's going to print this out and make the result equal nil. I'm making the result equal nil so that way we can return something and it'll give us nil basically. And then end. If the result isn't if we don't get this zero division error, then the result is just going to be whatever A divided by B is, and it's going to return that. So for example, let's go and do something that works first. 10 and 2. Cool. We see it works. And actually, let me comment that out. Run that again. Cool. We get 5. Exactly like what we're expecting. However, if I make this 0, now let's see what happens. If I run this, perfect. We're not getting that super loud error that's stopping the code. We're getting error. You cannot divide by 0. And then we're returning result is nil. That's what we're doing. Does this idea make sense? Yes, Junior.
So the divide numbers function is not technically returning error you can't divide by zero. It's still returning nil, but it like goes outside, prints that, and then goes back in and returns nil, something like that.
Kind of, yeah, yeah. That's pretty much what it's doing. And it sounds weird, but the way this works is we're gonna theoretically when we have an application running, we have a server. Like, right? So there's a server running for our application. That server has some logs. And so when we do this puts whatever, like we're putting it to the terminal, technically we're making logs is the way that I think of it. And so when I'm looking at the logs, if there's an error that happened, I want to see what happened. And so that's exactly why we're doing this. If we didn't, then we won't see any logs about what happened. And the reason why we're printing it out here, like for example, we're printing this out is just for us to see it. Technically, I like in the real world, it's not going to be this. It's going to be more like this, where like because we're not obviously like we're sending that data to the front end for the front end to show it to the user on the screen. So the reason why we need to print this out, print out what the function returns is so because we don't have a screen for us to see it somewhere. We have this terminal. And so that's why we need to return it so we can see it here. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's kind of redundant in a sense. Yeah, it's like, why are you printing that out? But when you kind of understand that idea of it's because we want to log it basically for the user to see, that's why. And that's also why we do it here after it, is because we want to see the result. But theoretically, in the real world, we're not going to be doing that. Yeah. Any other questions on this idea of begin and rescue?
Yeah.
Yes, Adrian.
Sorry, I just got a comment on that as well. Like
Yeah.
as as someone who works as an IT admin, like having those errors are very helpful
Hmm.
on like let's say you're trying to configure something, let's say you're trying to configure a router and it's showing an error. It will tell you exactly why the configuration is wrong. Or like what Leon mentioned when there's logs, when we have an outage and we want to know the source of why the outage was happening, those logs are there for that kind of reason. And it's also user friendly because we don't want to keep relying on like the vendor that we buy the product from to constantly just like, hey, can you do this? It costs money for our end for the support. So we try to not use it as much. Even we will still use it for like critical stuff, but like that's how I saw it when Leon was expressing applications and servers.
Mhm. Exactly. That's the idea. Is it's for these logs are for us to debug when something goes wrong. If we didn't do this, it's still gonna run and we'll still get the nil. However, it's like, why is that nil? Why? That doesn't make sense. Or like we don't know why. And so that's where we're gonna end up adding logs. Yes, Junior.
So you would have to know so it's like rescue space zero division error. You would have to know the specific name of the error.
So with this one, we are being specific because we're giving a really specific error. By a really specific error, we're saying, hey, you cannot divide by zero. This only makes sense with this specific error. Because
Yes.
we're being super specific with saying, hey, rescue this specific error, yes, technically we would do that. However, oh, sorry. We don't have to be that specific. We could just rescue any error. Like we could say, hey,
Uh,
any error, just give the user some input. And that's kind of what we're going to do after this, is we're just going to rescue for anything. Right now, we're being really specific just to show an example of how it works and exactly why it's this specific situation. However, yes, we can be like just general. But but sometimes you're going to want to rescue specific errors because you're going to want to know exactly what the specific like what is the reason why we got that specific issue? How do we prevent that from happening again? Kind of thing. So, yeah. Cool. Great questions and thank you, Adrian, for that comment. I appreciate that. Okay, cool. So, there's one more kind of layer to this that I want to add. I want to add because I said begin, rescue, and ensure. So, I'm going to add an ensure, and I'm going to say in here, I'm just going to do puts division attempt completed. And so this doesn't say it went through. This says that the attempt completed. By the attempt completed, we did do this, and there is a result. What that result is, it kind of depends on like what was given. And so this ensure is always going to run. Let's say for whatever reason, we always want a log to make sure for us to let us know that something happened, regardless of whether or not it failed or it didn't fail. So this ensure basically gives us a way for us to log something every time, regardless of what's going on. So now if I run this, we can see division attempt completed, and then it prints out the result. And even if I change this to something that's valid, we run it again. Perfect. Division attempt completed. And then there's a result. Exactly like we're expecting. And the idea with this again is this is giving us a way for us to just know that, hey, this program ran successfully or it attempted to run. And it like basically it ran without any real errors, any errors that we weren't specifically looking out for. Does this idea of ensure make sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me know. Yes, Junior.
so it just basically tells us that they did the begin, like begin was attempted. That
Basically, yeah, yes, yeah. Basically, yeah, we started this technically. And whether this went through or we got an error and we went through here, it doesn't matter. It went through this begin block, basically. Yeah, exactly. Mhm. So it's going to run regardless. It's not an else because it's not like, hey, if this runs, don't do this, or if this runs, don't do this. It's like, hey, run this regardless of what happens. Whatever's in here is going to happen regardless. And this isn't something that's mandatory for you to have. As you guys saw, I didn't have this originally, and it works completely fine. However, in the scenario that you want something to always be logged, for example, or something to always be done within this specific logic, that's where you're going to have an ensure block. So it's not something mandatory, but it's kind of an optional thing that you guys can add. Cool. Does all make sense with everybody? Okay, cool. So I'm going to give you guys an exercise. Actually, I'm going to have you guys do pretty much the same exact thing, but I want you guys to write it out yourself. And then we'll move on to a different exercise with different errors after this. Exercise. And so actually the last thing before I have you guys do this, the other idea with this error handling is that now that we have successfully handled this error, now our code will continue to run even after we're in a situation that would break the code usually. So for example, if I change this back to 0, and I'm going to comment all of this out, and I'm going to do puts hello. Or I'm sorry, not puts hello. I'm going to do just the result equals A divided by B. There you go. And so this should error out, and it's not going to print this out. If I run this, we see that error. It's erroring out. It's giving us the error that we're expecting, zero division error. However, as soon as we add this error handling, and I'm going to comment that, now if we run this again, perfect. We still are able to run our program. Our program is still running, even though there's a situation that would normally break it. And so that's the other huge idea with why this is so important to do. We don't want, so imagine like if you've ever been on a website, I'm sure so at some point in your life, you've kind of been in a situation where you're on a website or an application, you click on something and it breaks, right? It just errors out. You're not able to do anything. You have to like close the app and reopen it or refresh it or something like that. Has everyone been in a situation like that? Yeah. Exactly. And so that's where more than likely they're probably, I'm not saying anything wrong with whomever's software that is, but more than likely they're not doing proper error handling for that situation. And as a result, it's breaking the entire thing. And you have to literally restart it from scratch. Whereas I don't know what the specific situation of that was, but theoretically, had they done the right error handling, then you wouldn't have had that error. You would have had more of an error like when you see an error and you're still able to use the application. That's kind of exactly kind of like what we're doing here is you're seeing the error, but you're still able to use the application. And that's the ideal with this. Okay, cool. So with that being said, you guys' exercise, and then after the exercise, we'll take a break. But you guys' exercise, you're going to basically do exactly what I did here. You're going to create a safe division method. You can create a file called error handling, completely up to you, but basically write a method that takes in two numbers and divides them. And you're going to use begin and rescue to handle the zero division error. You have to literally type it like that. And then you'll use ensure to print a message indicating that the operation is complete. And I gave you guys the solution, but I do not want you guys to copy and paste. I want you to write it out and test it out for yourself. So I want you guys to see what it looks like, but I want you guys to practice writing it out yourself. Cool. All right. You guys are good to share your screen and try it out. I'll give you guys a few minutes on this. It shouldn't take too long. And then we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Actually, I'm going to go grab something real quick. I'll be right back. Hey, Adrian, you're writing Python again. You're missing. I want to read. Actually, right there. Is it right there in your error? Cool. So this error is basically saying you're supposed to be passing in like num1, num2, a, b, whatever, something like that. Like, what are the parameters that you're passing in? Is what I'm not asking you literally, it's a rhetorical question. I'll give you guys like a minute. About 7 o'clock, we'll take a 10-minute break. Also, the other thing to note real quick, as you guys are working, because I've seen it a couple times, is begin rescue is the same as a function or a condition or a loop or anything like that, where there's a kind of like a start, there's an end. So in the same way that a function has a def whatever and then an end at the end, begin rescue has where the begin and rescue is and then an end. So just keep that in mind. But it is 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and at 7:10 we'll continue. All right, welcome back, everybody. All right. Okay. You guys are good to stop sharing your screen. Let's go through kind of the next idea. Okay. I mean, actually, before we do that, does anybody have any questions about that? Is everyone able to do it without issue or anything like that? Yeah? Okay, cool. If you guys have any questions, again, obviously, just don't hesitate. Let me go and share my screen. Okay. So another way that we can do this is by using something called raise. So we can raise exceptions with this keyword raise. So raise. And so sometimes, we might want to, I guess, kind of give our own custom error, or sometimes they're basically just also just kind of another way that we could do this basically without using begin rescue. So for example, let's go let's go, I'm going to call this function check age. And it takes in an age. I'm going to make sure I put my end. And then here, I'm going to say if age is greater than 0, and I'm going to put my end, and then I have my else. So if age is greater than 0, I want to raise age cannot be negative. Else puts you are age years old. And then outside, so what this raise is actually going to do is it's going to call the begin rescue block that we're creating down here. So this is outside of the function. This is not within it. This is outside of it. We're going to go begin. I'm going to put my end right away. And I'm also just going to put my rescue right there. Why not? Okay, so we're going to go begin. And we're going to call check age -5 rescue. And I'm going to use this arrow syntax with E. I could use, I'm going to use error. I'm just going to use error. And then from there within here, I'm going to go puts an error occurred. I spell that right? OCCURRED. Yeah, that looks right. Occurred. And I'm going to put that error dot message. And I'm going to walk through each one of these lines and exactly the way this works. Let's just run this and let's make sure it works like what I'm expecting. I want this to first, let's do 5. Perfect. You are 5 years old. If I put -5, perfect. An error occurred. Age cannot be negative. Perfect. Okay, so the way this works is we're using this begin rescue end block. This begin block, we'll say begin rescue block, to when we call the function now. This isn't error handling. This is kind of the same, or it's similar to this. And here we put the begin rescue ensure block within the function, because within the function, this is kind of given the context of what it is. It just kind of depends on what you're doing. So here we're taking in 2 parameters. If we get this specific error, we're saying, hey, give this error, make result equal nil, and then obviously do the ensure and then return the result, which the result would be nil. And then it's going to say you cannot divide by 0 and division attempt completed. Here, we created this function that checks the age, and then we want to give a custom error. If age is less than 0, I want you to give this error, age cannot be negative, which that is technically what error.message is that's what this raise is. And so actually if we do, it's error, inputs error dot message. Whenever I want to see what something is, I'm just going to print it out. I want to show you guys. Okay, let's do this. Wait, let me verify this real quick. Is this doing what I think it is? What is that? Oh, I was wondering why I'm getting all this stuff. I forgot that I had that uncommented. That was confusing me. Okay, perfect. Okay, actually, so I didn't even need to do error dot message. Before, if I'm not mistaken, I had to grab the message, but I guess for what's it called? For sake of backwards compatibility, you can go error dot message or error. For simplicity, I guess we'll just use error. We don't need to do error dot message. And just to show you guys, yeah, both times if we do error or error dot message, we get the same thing, which is ultimately what we're raising here. Okay, sorry. I wanted to test that out because I guess they changed that. I didn't even know. Good to know. Okay, so back to this. The way this works is we have this begin, rescue, end block. It's a begin rescue block, technically is what it's called. And so within here, we begin and then we call check age, which is the function that we created here. And we call it. So we go and now it goes up here, passing in -5 as the parameter. So now we have if -5 is less than 0, raise this argument, which is going to be the error if it fails. If this isn't true and we go to the else, then print out this sentence. And so if it does error out, again, it's going to raise this error. By raise this error, all that means is, hey, pass this message into the rescue block as whatever text it is we're using here. And by what? By text, I could make this technically anything I want. I could make this test as long as down here I'm using test. And if I run this, we see the same exact thing. But it makes sense to use error, or oftentimes you'll see E, because that's exactly what it is it's an error. If I run this, just to show you guys, same exact thing, but I've been using error to make it more readable. Does this idea make sense to everybody? We're using the begin rescue block when calling a specific method. Yes, Junior.
Okay, so you can name the rescue arrow error and it just matches the one on the inside, right? Could
Right.
you are there going to be times where there's more than one say raise and you would say age error or something else error or something like that, or is it always going to be one kind of error, or am
This
I
will
just kind of
This one will always be one kind of error. Where you'll have like a multiple things is where we're in here. So in here, and literally the next thing actually in my notes that we're gonna go through is what if we wanted to have like listen out for multiple errors, kind of like what we were talking about. And so in that scenario, we would instead of it'd be raise here. Like let's say we're doing something similar, we do raise, and depending on what it raises, will determine what error is. Whichever one it raises is what error is going to be, if that makes sense. So that's why down there it'll always be error. So this
okay?
can be just error. It doesn't have to be specific. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense? All right, cool. Any other questions about this? Okay. Let me know, please, if there's any questions or anything like that. Okay, so let's do this. Let me give you guys an exercise to try this out. Don't need to create another file. Let's do this one. I want to do a different example. Use raise to check if the input shorter than 3 characters. Yeah, I like this one better. Okay, cool. And I'll share this code for your example. Okay. So you guys' exercise is I want you guys to validate user input with raise. So you're going to write a method that asks a user for a word. From there, you're going to use raise to check if the input is shorter than 3 characters. And then you're going to use rescue to handle the exception, basically if it is shorter than 3 characters. Yeah. Does that make sense with everyone? All right, cool. You guys are good to share your screen and try that out. So, not trying to confuse anybody here. There's many different ways to do the same thing, but I just wanted to note that you can get the user's input outside or inside the function. And by outside or inside, like you can get the user's input and then pass that input into when you call the function, or within the function, you can just prompt them for like to get their user input. Completely up to you on how you want to handle that. I'll leave it up to you. In my solution, I have it so I'm prompting the user within the function, but it's completely up to you again on how you want to do it because I wasn't specific on that. I'm gonna give you guys like let's say 5 minutes on this or so, roughly maybe a little bit more, but and then we're gonna walk through the solution together. Hey Matt, the reason you're getting that specific error both times is because technically you're passing in what it's like, hey, or it's basically it's like it's not a string, technically. You're passing in whale, for example, and it's like, hey, whale, it isn't a method that's in this function. It isn't a variable that's in this file or anything like that. So that doesn't make sense. It's like, hey, undefined local variable method whale, for example. Exactly. So yeah, you needed to change that to be a string. Or you needed to assign what whale is, like whale equals something. So this is the error that you're expecting, Matt. If you this is correct based on what you on the condition that you set, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I want you to try putting in like TO, put like two. Okay, no, just one O. Yeah, now run this. And that's how you'll get the other wait. If word change it to be the other way. Okay, so this is where if word is oh, that's why. Okay, you're not checking the length. How do you check the length of a string? There you go. That's why it was always failing. Okay, now run this code again. Okay, that's perfect. So now change the word to have more characters. Yeah, just add an O, for example. Yeah, exactly. What doesn't matter what it is. That's solid. There you go. Solid. Hey, Junior, I think you're really close. Right off the back though. So what's going on in 50 and 51? I guess maybe is my question here. It's like if it errors out, we're gonna ask them to enter another word and get their input. That's my question to you. Like rhetorical, more or less. Oh, so you wanna ask them again. Got you. Okay, okay. I like that actually. So after you get that working though, my one feedback though is we're never telling them what the error is, if that makes sense. So I'd say before you do that, like give them some feedback. Hey, like your error is whatever that error was. Hey Ron, yours looks solid actually. I'm looking at it. Does this run good?
No, I'm trying to figure out why it's not prompting to get the user's
Got
word right now.
yeah. So my question to you is whenever we create a function, what do we have to do to get it to run? Because technically functions don't run. Like a function will never run unless we call it, is my hint to you. Does that make sense? So do you ever
So
call
can you?
the function? Do you ever call this function? Like do you ever anywhere in the code tell it, hey, run user's word?
Ah, okay, okay,
Does that make sense?
okay. Yeah, yeah. Let me give it a go.
Okay. So you're super close, Ron, actually. You're super close. So I like that you're calling it, but you need to call it outside of the function. If you call it within side, so this function user's word is never gonna run unless outside of it, so anywhere before or after technically after 48, you have to say, hey, print out what the result is of user's word. So you had the right idea. It's just you cannot do it within the function. If you do it within the function, you're gonna have the same exact issue, or if nothing calls it, it'll never run. Okay, now try this out. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to take a look at is in the example I shared with you guys. So it'll right now like raise does nothing because we don't have a begin rescue block. Raise isn't like what is it? It's never going to do anything. So if you look at the Slack message actually when you call the function, you're going to do begin, and then it's going to call the function, and then it's going to be rescue error, and then whatever the error is, and an end after that. So basically, yeah, outside of it. So it'll be like begin,
Also, the begin calls the raise within the function.
correct.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So we're basically saying, hey, begin calling whatever the name of the function is, user's word. If it errors out, that error is going to be whatever we're raising. That's the way it works. I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes to like 7:40, and then we are going to try it out. Or we're gonna go through the solution. And I'm gonna ask one of you guys if you guys share your solution, by the way. So Alrighty. You guys are good to stop sharing your screen. I know some of you guys are still working on it, and that's completely fine. We're gonna walk through this together, and then from there, yeah, you guys can continue that after, and we'll move on to the next thing after that to continue building upon this. Okay. Does anybody want to share a solution, whether it's working or not? We can work through it together. If it's not, and if it is, obviously, and cool. Any volunteers?
Mine doesn't work again, so
I'll get. Okay. So here, I'm gonna share my screen and let's work through this together. I actually haven't solved this one yet, so we're gonna do it together right now. Okay. So the activity is validate user's input with raise. Write a method that asks the user for a word. Oh, my bad. Stassi, give me one second. Okay. Write a method that asks the user for a word. Use raise to check if the input is shorter than 3 characters and use rescue to handle any exceptions. So I'm going to create a function and I'm going to call it, I don't know, long words. And this function, it's going to ask the user for input. So I'm going to go input equals gets.chomp. And let's just go ahead and put you entered input just to make sure it works. And let's just call this. I'm going to go long words. And so whenever I ask you guys, because I'm going to ask you guys, if you're getting, depending on like, so actually let's do this. Let's run this. Why is my code not running? I want you guys to help me out. Why is it not displaying anything? Like, why don't I see anything? Someone can help me out.
I know this one.
Yes, Ron.
Because you're not calling the function, or
Exactly.
yeah, you're not. Yeah.
Exactly. We're not calling the function. We're not telling the program to run that function. So if we created a function, even no matter how long or whatever's in the function, it will never run unless we tell it to run. So that's where I'm going to do like p long words or whatever. And just to continue with the return, I'll do return. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this. Perfect. So I didn't prompt them, but I can say Leon and it says you entered Leon. And actually, let me go ahead and do that. I'll just prompt the user. Please enter a word. Cool. And now if I run it again, just to make sure it works, Leon, you entered Leon. Perfect. Okay, so this is working exactly like what we're expecting. So now I'm going to go ahead and add kind of the rest of the functionality. I need to add a condition to check if the input is shorter than 3 characters. And then I'm going to use the raise and begin rescue blocks to handle that exception and prompt the user again if it's wrong. Okay.
Hey, Leon, I
Yes.
have a question real quick.
Yes.
I'm not actually tracking why it didn't do anything before you put a P.
Yeah.
Like you call
Oh,
long
actually,
words.
I didn't have anything. It was like this.
Oh, okay. So like if you did have long words, then it would have run what was inside, right? If
Correct.
you just okay. So it would run something. Okay, okay.
No, so
Okay.
actually having this puts and input here, it maybe helps to kind of understand, like helps it to like a little bit click a little better, if that hopefully.
Okay.
Because it's like, even though I'm not, so if I, okay, here's what I'm gonna do to maybe visualize it even a little bit better. I'm gonna print that out. So I'm gonna run this again. Leon. So even though so this time we didn't put P. However, we're getting everything in here is running, regardless of whether or not we put P, because we're telling the function to run. However, if I change this to return, we're now not going to see this, but we're going to see this stuff. So now if I run this again, enter Leon, so we don't see what it returns because the return is coming here, but that's where it's ending because we're not telling it to do anything with it. If we tell it to print it out, we'll see it. If we don't, we won't. Cool. So I hope this Actually, I wish later before we kind of did an example like this where we have like both of them together because I feel like you can kind of easier understand that like, hey, the function's running, but if you're not returning it, you're never going to see what's like the result of that function. Cool. So I'm happy that makes more sense. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and so now we need to add our condition and we need to add our raise and begin rescue block. So we can do a condition and I don't need this anymore. So I'm gonna do if input dot length because I need to check the length of the input. I cannot just check if input because it'll always return true. It always return I think it'll always return true. Okay, so if input dot length is less than 3, I'm going to make sure I put my end to make sure we don't get a syntax error, and then I'm going to have an else. So I'm going to go here. So if input dot length is less than 3, we're going to raise a specific message. Your word is too short. After that, then, or if it's not too short, then here's where we can do like puts you input or solid that's longer than 3 characters. I don't know, it doesn't really matter what we put. And then now because we have that raise, now we have to do begin. I'm going to put my end right away. And so to begin, we're going to call long words. And I'm not going to put whatever. And then I'm going to do my rescue. With the arrow, we're going to get the error. And we're going to say puts error, and then let's just say what that error is. Okay, cool. So this should work. So the way this should work, this is what I'm expecting it to happen is we're gonna start this begin rescue block. We're gonna call long words. From there, it goes up here. We're gonna get into this long words function. We're gonna print out enter a word. We're gonna get the user's input. If the user's input is less than 3, then we're gonna raise that your word is too short, and it's gonna immediately go down here and it's going to be like, okay, cool. Give that error, whatever that error is, which it's going to say whatever it is that we told it to say, which is this raise. If the word is longer than 3, then we're going to say solid, that number is longer than 3. And then it's going to come back here and it's just going to go to the end because technically there's no error to rescue. Let's try it out. Cool. Please enter a word. Test. Solid. That word's longer than 3 characters. Please enter a word. Let's go 12. Or let's do 2. Okay, cool. Your word is too short. Exactly like what we're expecting. And so one thing you guys will notice is that I want to get both, when I'm testing this stuff out, I want to test every situation that this code might run or that might face. So I want to test where it's success, where it fails, etc. And I want to see if I can make it fail. What if I type in 10? Okay, your word is too short. What if I type in 100 or 1,000? Solid, that's longer than 3 characters. And so this is actually working the way we expect. Because technically, as if you guys remember, gets.chomp is always a string. So this 10 right here is technically this. It's not this. And so that's where it makes sense. That makes sense. It's doing exactly like what we expect. Cool. Does anybody have any questions with this? Actually, there's actually one more step to it, but before I continue with it, does anyone have any questions with this? Okay, cool. So the last thing is it says, and prompt the user again. So the way that we can prompt the user again is just by calling the function again. We're going to say, and then maybe I'll do like puts, try again. That makes sense, maybe like that. So if I run it, I'm going to do like 10. Your word is too short. Try again. Please enter a word. Something. Perfect. Solid. That's longer than 3 characters. Cool. We can see it's working like we expect. We didn't need to write a loop. We didn't need any super complex logic. We have a prompt. We get the user's input and we have a condition. This condition is going to determine what happens. If it fails, we're going to go here to this rescue block. If it doesn't fail, we're just going to end it. And then we have this begin rescue block, which is what originally started this whole function. And then based on what happens here, We're gonna prompt the user, we're gonna give the user the error, tell them to try again, and then rerun this entire logic. Yeah, so this is actually kind of recursive, which is kind of cool. By recursive, it's like a function that kind of calls itself. Technically, we're not calling it within the, whatever. We'll get to that later. Questions, comments about this? All right, cool. Does this make sense with everybody? Cool. Okay. Any point, if there's any questions, please, please, please let me know. Okay. Let's go ahead. Before we move on to the next thing, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to handle multiple exceptions and custom exceptions. By multiple exceptions and custom exceptions, we're going to go back up to, for example, this example. And like, what if I wanted to handle if a user enters like strings, like numbers, basically. Like what if we pass in like test, like words, basically, instead of that? How are we going to handle that? Like other things. Also, to answer your question, Junior, so if you don't tell it to listen out for a specific error, it will just listen out for any error. So this is how you would do it. You just wouldn't say it. If you want it to listen out for a specific error, that's where you would. If you didn't want to, you won't. But listening out for specific errors is something helpful. A lot of times it's helpful because you want to know based on what's going on, what is the exact error that happened and why. And so for us doing that, we can be more specific with our logs if we're more specific with that. If like now that we're doing just a regular rescue with no specific tied to no specific error, this message is technically wrong because what if it wasn't that they divided by 0? What if it's that they entered a word, instead or something like that? So that's why being specific with it is sometimes helpful, but sometimes you just want to do a general thing. Completely up to you. But we'll get to this after. Okay, cool. So on that note, let's go ahead and take a quick 10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:02 and we are going to continue. Welcome back, everybody. Okay.
Hey Leon, sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I put it in the chat, but basically I was asking if there was any update regarding the op job opportunity at DMR, if you're able to meet up with them today.
So I actually met with them and the meeting, it was supposed to be just kind of an intro meeting with me and the CEO, Richard Tizeno. But it actually ended up being a really, really good meeting. I think the meeting ended up being like 3 hours long. I was there from like 10 till like 1:30 almost. But it was all good things. It was really good. Um, so they are interested in probably doing like an internship or even like internship to hire kind of thing. We don't know the finalized details, so I don't want to like get anyone's hopes up. So like, oh, that's for sure. But it's looking like it's very, very likely that we're at the least gonna do an internship. But again, they are looking for engineers as well. So more than likely it would be like internship, and then from there, provided everything goes well and they whatever, potentially there is an opportunities, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Just wanted to check. Thanks.
Yeah. No, of course. So it's looking really good. Again, I just don't want to like say, oh yeah, it's 100% on anything because we haven't finalized any details. It was just kind of the introductory meeting. But as more details come, I'll make sure to update you guys. And thank you for asking. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. All right, cool. Okay. So where did we leave off? Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, so let me know if you guys have any questions on that. So the next thing we are gonna go through. And actually, I didn't share the solution. Let me share the solution first. Solution. Yeah. Okay, there. That's the solution. All right. Let me comment this out. Go to the bottom. All right. So, in like the real world, we're probably gonna encounter a bunch of different exceptions or a bunch of different errors. And so I guess kind of going back to this one, this divide numbers, I'm gonna put it back to the way it was. So originally it looked like this. And so this is good. We're starting some error handling and we are doing some. However, we're not accounting for every type of error. And there's so many different errors to kind of look out for. But I mean, right off the back, like what if someone did like test? What if someone passed in a string? Yeah, it's going to do this. So now we got, wait, am I running anything else? Okay, cool. So now we got another error here. Undefined method slash for an instance of string, because technically we're trying to divide string divided by 0, which there's two issues there. We can't divide by 0 and we cannot, like a string doing division doesn't make sense. So here's another scenario that we have to kind of account for. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that in these situations, we're going to want to, I guess, rescue more than one error. We're going to want to account for more than one error, maybe is a better way to say it. And so that's kind of what we can do. Um, let's see. And so I guess right off the top of my head, actually, I wanted to share this first. Kind of as I mentioned before the break, we can just do rescue. However, then we have to make this error pretty generic. Something wrong. I don't even know. I can't think off the top of my head, but I'm just going to put something wrong. And so now if we run this, perfect. We can see error, something wrong, because that's what we printed out. And then we returned nil. So that's why it printed out nil. We don't know. It's like, okay, but why? Like what's going on? Like we don't know exactly why. Like imagine this was some super complex logic. It's like, why did that happen? We don't know. We just know that it errored out, which is good. That's kind of a step. It's better than no error handling. If we weren't doing error handling, we would be getting something like this, where it's going to give us some error that's going to break our code. But this is kind of a step in the right direction. And so the next step, to be a little bit more specific, is where, let me go ahead and revert that. We can basically add multiple rescue blocks. So I can go rescue, and let's say I go type error. And so I want to rescue for, where is it at? I basically want to get the type error, which is going to look something like, let's just do this first. Let's do this. Let's go puts error, both arguments must be numbers. And then from there, result equals nil. And let's go ahead and do this. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And we'll keep this one with the regular. We'll do 10. And then we're going to do it again. And let's just do like test, test, whatever. And then we'll do one that's proper. 10 and 2, whatever. Let's try this out. Undefined method. Why are we getting that? A divided by B. We should be handling that with this. Why are we? Let's try this. Okay, cool. I don't, okay. I'm actually, I'm not sure why it's not a type error when we do that and it's a no method error. In my head, that's a type error because we're trying to use a string to divide, but I guess this is kind of one situation where we're adapting based on what's actually happening here. Because in my notes and when I was testing this before, I had this as type error, but as we can see, that's wrong. So we had to use no method error, which is exactly what it is. So I guess that works. So I'm going to adapt and we're going to change it to that. Okay, so with that being said, so now as we can see here, and maybe actually to make it clearer, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put a bunch of lines. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Let's run it again. Perfect. So the first time we ran this, we passed in 10 and 0. We got you cannot divide by 0, which is exactly like what we're expecting. We handled the 0 division error. The second time through, we passed in some strings. So both arguments must be numbers. Division division completed, whatever. I'm sorry, no. What I'm looking here is for this. Both arguments can or must be numbers because we're doing the no method error. And then from there, then we have the actual one where it's just went through. So we can see we're handling multiple different situations depending on what's happening. And maybe the next thing that I'd do is I'd just do a general rescue block and I'd give it some general error. Not sure what exactly happened, but it failed. I don't know. Equals nil. And I have to keep doing this result equals nil because we're returning the result. If we weren't returning the result, it wouldn't matter. But specifically because we're returning the result, I have to give the result some value because technically it's failing. Okay, cool. And so now for whatever reason, let me see if I can make this fail in a different way. Let's do, trying to think of another way to make this fail. False. I don't know. Try this. Okay, cool there. We got the note, not sure what exactly happened, but it failed. Perfect. So we're able to get all different situations. Yes, Junior.
So if we didn't put like say nil in one of those rescues, would it break then? Like
Yeah.
if there was no nil?
Sure, why don't we try it out right now? So we should fail with this first one. So right now we're getting nil. If we comment that out and run it again, oh, I guess it's redundant to do it. In my head, I thought we had to do it, but I guess it's already returning nil in a sense. Interesting. I thought that we had to do it. I won't lie. Great question. Okay, so I'm going to comment it out for all of them. Let's try it again. Nil, nil. Yeah, okay. So it's already doing it. So when it attempted to do it, it already got nil. Great question, because actually I was wrong about that. I thought that I had to explicitly do it because I thought that like this was like in like some weird state where we had to be like, hey, results is nil, so that way we can return it. Cool. Great question. Any other questions or comments about this? Happy to try anything to break it or whatever.
I think instead of type error, you could do name error for
This one?
the string.
For which one, Lana?
Yeah, instead of no method error, you can put name error.
Let's try it out. So that should fail this one. Should fail on the second one. So let's see. On the second one, both arguments must be numbers. Cool. We got a name error. So there's different ways we could do it. Really interesting. So I could have done name error. I could have done no method error. The reason why I put no method error in was just because when I didn't listen out for this one, so like if I comment all of this out and it fails, we're gonna see that it says no method error. That's the reason. That's the whole reason why I put that there. But that's really cool how I guess this error encapsulates multiple things, I guess, in a sense. There's name error and also no method error under the same thing, which is actually really interesting. So cool. Thank you, Lana, for that. We're all learning something new here. Any other questions, comments about this? Does this all make sense to everybody? How we're listening out for specific errors, but then we're also accounting for just the general, like, hey, if anything else happens, we don't know what happened, but it failed. Does this all make sense? Yeah. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and do this. Oh, actually, the other thing, I actually had notes on this. Okay, actually, I'm happy I added these notes. I added these notes after Lana's class or during Lana's class when I taught her class. So a few other notes that I wanted to share is that I recommend error handling to me is a nice to have. By nice to have, if I give you guys a complex, if I give you guys a homework or a solution or an exercise, and I say, hey, solve this, give me a function for this, or solve this, whatever. I do not want right off the back for you guys to have a bunch of error handling. The reason why is because I want you guys to get it working. Get it working with the simplest, or not, maybe not even the simplest. Get it working with the solution that works for you. And then from there, then you can iterate on it to add error handling, to add whatever, or anything like that. And actually, I wanted to commend Matt because I saw when I was watching Matt working on one of these problems that we gave, instead of immediately even getting user input, he was originally hard coding the values. So for example, for this was the long words one. So to go to the long, I'm going to comment this out so that way it doesn't run. And so what Matt did, I'm going to go to long words. Instead of hard coding or instead of asking the user for input, he hard coded what the value was. And he did something more like this. I'm going to go input there. And then when I call the function, he just passed in like word or whatever. And so like, because in my head, adding user input is kind of another level of complexity. I like it when you guys start with the simplest version first and then kind of iterate on it to make it more complex. And that's the same thing when it comes to when it comes to error handling. Like to me, error handling, again, it's kind of like a nice to have when you're building something. Of course, with the actual, like if you're going to ship some production code for some client, you definitely need error handling. That's a must have. However, like for the sake of like when you're starting out and when you're building things for the first time through, to me, error handling is going to be a nice to have. And again, so like I would rather you guys do a really simple version that you guys understand and then add all the other layers of complexity. Then you can, okay, cool. Let me listen out for this error. All right, got that working. All right, let me add this one. All right, cool. And what if everything else? Let me add this. And then I would test it all out exactly like what I did there, where I'm testing out all the different situations, etc. And so the point here, start simple and then iterate on it. No one here needs to go and just build out some super complex function or anything like that. That's not what I'm expecting. That's not what I do. That's not what I'd recommend you guys do, especially as things get more complex. Um, let's see. The other note that I made was that if you're getting an error outside of the function, then you're going to need to error handle outside of the function. These errors are all for errors that we would get within this function. So, and what I mean by that is let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to comment all this out. What if I only passed in one argument? What do you guys think is going to happen here, if I may ask? Or actually, let's just run it. Let's run it. So we got an error. We got an error that you guys have seen at least a couple times. We got an error that says wrong number of arguments given one expected two. And the reason why, even though technically we're rescuing for any error, however, that's any error that happens when we've began this begin rescue block. We haven't even started the begin rescue block because technically it never even got there. And so that's why if we wanted to account for this type of error, for errors outside of the function, we need to add error handling outside of the function. That's where we would do kind of something like these begin rescue blocks outside when we call the function versus just when we're inside the function. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Sorry, a lot of things going on, but I just wanted to share that. That was a note that I had from Lana's class, and I wanted to make sure I said that. Let's see, there's one more thing, I think.
Hey, Leon.
Yes, Adrian.
So basically what that means is like making sure the function is actually working to begin with, like having it outside. Okay.
No, no, I by so what I was saying there was like if I was to give you like when I originally gave you guys this exercise to do this, if I was to like if at the point like if I give you or let's say sorry, let me take that back. If I give you guys another exercise where you're basically supposed to do something like this, I'm gonna want you guys to get it working first. So for example, if I was to do this again, the first thing that I would want you guys to do, I'm gonna do def divide numbers. It passes in A and B. It could even, for example, sometimes if I'm really trying to be super, I guess, simple, I would just do like puts hello or something like that. And then I'm going to call divide numbers. This is kind of extreme, obviously. We know that this is going to work. But if you're like super, sorry, it's running this code down here. If you're like super beginning and like you're not sure, this is kind of the level of like simplicity that I would kind of recommend. As you get more comfortable, then okay, cool. Let me go and do like A and B, and I want it to return A divided by B. Okay, cool. And then that means because I'm returning, I need to print that out. It's going to do this. All right, cool. I didn't pass in A and B. 10 and 2. If I run this, there we get 5. All right, cool. Now I have this working. Now I can start adding all of the other layers of complexity, which would be, for example, all these begin and rescue blocks. I wouldn't recommend doing it right away, just because just get it get it working first. After you get it working, then add all the rest of this stuff. That's the idea. Does that make sense? All right, solid, solid, solid. Cool. Great questions. Okay, so with that being said, let me give you guys an exercise. All right, so basically we are going to enhance the, what's it called? Whatever the function you call it. I called mine divide numbers. I'm gonna say divide numbers. All right, cool. So I want you to enhance the divide numbers method. You're going to add more rescue clauses for type errors or for, and I'll share this one. Again, feel free to use this as your reference, but I want you guys to write it out explicitly. That, and I'm going to share this as well. Let me just do this. Where is it at? Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay. Yeah, so basically, I want you guys to enhance your divide numbers or whatever function you're using to handle other errors. For example, zero division error, name error, type error, etc. And do the also the just general rescue to get any other error that may be. I'm gonna give you guys 4 or 5 minutes on this just because we're just kind of expanding on it. And you guys are good to share your screen and try that out. And then we'll move on to the next thing. Hey, Ron, you're super close. I like what you have there actually. However, what's going on there? The reason why you're getting zero, or do you know what's going on there actually? Sorry, I don't want to just assume. Do you know why you're not getting the zero division error?
Honestly, no. I'm still scanning through it.
All good, all good. Um, so the reason you're not getting, and you will not, given this 0 and 2, is because technically the issue is that you cannot divide by 0, but you can do 0 divided by something. So like if you did 0 divided by 1 or 0 divided by 2, which is technically what you're doing here, 0 divided by 2, you'll get 0. However, the issue, or where the zero division error comes up, if you're doing any number divided by 0. So basically you have to put 0 the second. You have to put it here where 2 is rather than where it currently is. You have to switch them around. As soon as you get that, you'll get the zero division error. Yeah, cool. Try that out. There you go. Oh, yes, sir.
Hey Leon, how would I convert this one to work?
Yeah, let me see, let me see, let me see. Let me switch over your screen. Okay. Um, are you talking about 83?
Yeah, so
Put it one number.
what is it? It's giving me the error down here in the terminal, but I'm trying to do it to catch it up here, if
Got
anything.
Okay, so this is yeah, so this is one of the things I mentioned with so if you're getting an error outside of the function, you have to error handle it outside of the function. And so what I mean by that is technically we're not able to, so this argument error, even if you were to handle it inside here, which you are, I see it right there, this will never be called because this error that you're getting happens outside of it. It happens before the function's even called, or it happens when the function's
Also, I have to handle this like here, if
correct.
anything.
You'll have to do some stuff out here. So you could do like begin, rescue, argument error, end kind of thing, if that makes sense. And actually, I'd like to see you try it out, actually. If you put, so do like begin, and then after that, you can do your end, and then in between, you'll have like rescue, argument error. Yeah. And then in between there, go and do like your rescue, and then it's going to be argument error. And I think this should work. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you can do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And then make sure so here, wait, so instead of calling these functions outside, now you would call it after the begin. Because technically this will never do anything unless we tell it, hey, begin, and then call that, because that's the way the error handling works. It's only going to be within here. Perfect. Go ahead and you can comment those out. Yeah, and delete the extra commas in there. Go ahead and delete those commas right there. I like that you're messing with this. Okay, try this out. I think this should work. Solid. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is exactly what I meant by that. Is if you're getting an error outside of the function, you have to account for it outside of the function and do your error handling outside. If you need it inside, then you do it inside. If you need it outside, you need it outside, etc. Yeah. So this is perfect. This is solid.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Great work, man. Okay, let's see. Nice. I see some of you guys are trying that out. So I'll give you guys a few minutes and then I'm going to give you guys another exercise. There's some other stuff we could go through, but I feel like this is kind of the extent to which is important for understanding with error handling. And then we can start on a new thing tomorrow. So Ron, the one thing I'd recommend though, yeah, go ahead and yeah, you're deleting that, which is good. That is, I recommend that, and even delete that line. However, the other thing I recommend is now whenever you call this function divide numbers, I recommend that you call it within the begin rescue block. And the reason behind that is because now that you've added this error handling, you might as well just use it every single time. And so what I mean is like, so instead of doing all your P and puts whatever here, I recommend putting them all of them after 85 and before 87, basically between the begin and rescue. And so theoretically, if there were more errors that might come up, you would add another rescue for that specific error, or you would just do a general rescue. So that way you're just accounting for any type of error that would have happened before you call this function or before it gets into the function, if that makes sense. Yeah, cool. Solid, Matt. I like what you did there. My recommendation though is the same as Ron's. Just I recommend so this works and there's actually nothing wrong with it. But just to me, I'd recommend now that you have this error handling down here, I'd recommend that whenever you call the function, which is all here, all those ones, that you might as well just do it within the begin rescue right there. Just so that way you're always error handling. You're not only error handling when you're doing this one, you're doing it always. And you can kind of, in that sense, you could kind of build upon this. You could, the same way you have a bunch of rescue, all that stuff there, you could also have a bunch of rescues down there. If you know, yeah, you get what I'm saying. That's you don't have to do that, but that's just what I'm saying. Like for future, when you're thinking of this, that's what I would recommend. Okay, cool. All right, you guys are good to stop sharing your screen. And we're gonna go through a couple, like we're not gonna go through anything, but I want to share something so that way I can give you guys another exercise and you guys can build upon it. Okay, let me share my screen. Cool. So you guys are actually you guys are killing it. I'm really, really proud of you guys. One thing, so actually what I was just going through, you guys just there was, where is it at? This one. Let me go ahead and delete this. Delete this. And let me go ahead and uncomment all of this. Yeah. Okay. Is that too zoomed out for you guys? Sorry, I feel like I asked that before. You guys can still read this okay? Okay, let me know if this is too small. I'll make it bigger. Okay. So I'm gonna run this. Perfect. It does exactly like what we're expecting. However, kind of what I was just sharing with a couple of you guys, I saw you guys were doing was this one. If this fails, okay, cool. It's failing right away. And so, kind of as I mentioned, because this error is happening outside of the function, we have to account for it outside of the function. And so the way to do that is to literally add another begin rescue block. And so I'm literally going to move all of this within the begin side. And then I'm going to say rescue. I can say rescue specifically for the argument error. Argument error. But you must have at least, no, you must have two arguments. I don't know, I can say whatever. And so now when I run this, cool, perfect. You must have two arguments, doing exactly like what we expect. Um, actually, wait. Ah, okay. I was mistaken here. I told a couple of you guys already to put all of them in here. However, it's only gonna run one time technically because it goes here and it failed and it went to this rescue and then it ended. It's not like this is a loop where it's gonna continuously go. That's really interesting actually. I didn't think of that before I said that. I apologize for that. Now I have to move it outside. Okay, now it runs everything. So I apologize. So basically, I told a couple of you guys already to move all of them within here, which to me still makes sense if if you're not running it like multiple times. If you're running this multiple times and it fails, so basically if I move this back in there, so now technically, as soon as we get to this rescue block, it's going to error out. If I move this to the bottom, this should run like what we expect. Perfect. It runs all of them. However, as soon as we get to this rescue block, because this isn't a loop, it's going to stop right away. So that's one thing to note. I do recommend that once you start doing this error handling, I recommend that you continue using it. Like if I'm going to test it out again, I'm going to do it in here. I'm not going to go outside and run it because it doesn't make sense because I already added this. But yeah, so that's one thing to note though, is it kind of does matter what order it is you put here. If you put this at the top, because we're going to get to the argument error, it's never going to run any of this stuff. That's exactly why as soon as I move it to the top, it says you must have two arguments because we say that's what to do if you get that error, and then it stops. It's the one thing to note there. Cool. Is anybody have any questions on the idea of error handling? All right. How does everyone feel with it? You guys have any comments, anything you like to share about error handling? You guys like it? I don't like it. It's boring, it's extra. No, it's cool. Comments?
I can understand it when you make it, but for me to come up with it, it's harder.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really valid thing to say because to me too, it's not super intuitive until you actually get to it. And that's where I'd probably like again, that kind of goes back to me of like doing the simplest version of this where it's literally just going to return A divided by B. And then from there, as you're testing it, you're going to test all those situations because like I guess what I'm trying to say is like when I'm creating code, when I'm writing code for a client, for example, I do my best to break the code. I want to see it break because I know that in the real world, customers and people who are using it are going to do different things that where it's going to put it in different situations. And so that's where I'm physically trying, not obviously not physically, but I'm actually trying to break the code to test all the different situations so that way then I can add more error handling to account for that. And so I don't expect you guys to just come out and know all of the different situations to handle for, but I'm hoping and I'm expecting that you guys test out your code and okay, cool, try to break it. Okay, cool, it's breaking that way. Okay, cool. So that's exactly why then a couple of you guys or actually a bunch of us were like, okay, cool, let's go ahead and add this, etc. And things like that. And so that's really more of the way I think of it because you're right, there is a lot of things to account for. And to me, even it's not like, oh yeah, do this, this, this. But it's like as you're going through it and testing it and breaking it, that's where then you can account for it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Cool. Adrian, you unmuted?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was gonna say like it kind of makes sense the more you think about it when it comes to like even well, most of us like played games at least once. Um, when they beta something and they need like a playtester or something like anything that's around that line that knows about the game or is trying to like see how they break it.
Mm-hmm.
In the simplest term of seeing this in action, it makes way more sense to have something like this. Especially when things get way more complex and you want to see where it goes wrong, at least in the core value. And then once it more gets even more complex, you have more errors to like I guess it's like debugging, right? Because like there's a lot of errors, error numbers or error codes in different
Mm-hmm.
applications, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the things I like about this class is I feel like even after I took it, I have such a better understanding of why things are the way they are. So now when you guys go to a website, if it errors out and it stops the screen, like you're not able to do anything, you have to refresh it, or like a website or a game or whatever it is. Now you guys kind of understand why there's something in their code that's breaking in a way that isn't properly like handled for that specific error. They didn't account for it. And as a result, it's getting something where it's actually stopping the process. By the process, it's not able to finish the code, like the process that runs the code, which is actually really interesting. And there's different things like that. And so yeah, 100%. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we have like 13 minutes or so. What I did want to have you guys do next, based on this error handling, is I wanted you guys to pull up, or actually, this is what we're going to do. I want you guys to pull up one of your kind of command line interfaces. It doesn't matter which one. It could be the homework, or it could be another one, whatever. It really doesn't matter which one. But I want us to add some error handling in here. And right off the back, I think the error handling that we should implement, the first thing that I'm going to make mandatory, or whatever, like the exercise is going to add some error handling for here. And error handling looks different depending on what you're doing. And I guess one thing right off the back, for example, is this line has some error handling. What I do that has error handling here is this down case. Because it's like, here's another situation where it's not going to give it a good error, but it's going to error out. So let's say we're trying to find a contact and the contact that originally was saved, had an uppercase L. Let's say they put Leon with uppercase L. However, what if when they're searching for it, they put a lowercase one? It's not going to find it. And so just to show you guys, if I remove this down case, I'm going to remove this. Let's go ahead and run this Ruby practice one. If I add in, let's add a contact, I'm going to name it Leon 123, 123 at test.com, whatever. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to search for a contact. If I type in Leon with lowercase l, we can see that we just added it right there. If I type in Leon with lowercase l, and let me go ahead and do this, enter, contact not found. There is a contact with Leon. So this is technically, this obviously isn't an error in the sense that it's giving us an error or it's breaking the code. However, to me, this is an error. This is an issue that our users, that if this was an actual application users were using, to me, this is an error. This is a problem. So what we need to, so one way we can account for this situation, this to me, this error is we can add dot down case. So basically we're saying, hey, search for this name, search the entire contact. So this is technically looping through all the contacts. Loop through all of them and lowercase every single name. And then compare that to whatever the user inputs, also lowercased. So that way, that's one less thing that we have to error handle, one less thing that we have to account for because we're accounting for it there. And so to me, error handling comes in a lot of different forms, a lot of different ways. There's a bunch of different things we can do to kind of error handle. And we are doing so, like right here, this is another type of error handling. Hey, if they don't find a contact, tell them that we didn't find a contact. So to me, this is another type of error handling. And another one right here, else invalid choice. Please try again. So basically, if they don't enter a choice that we have like actual code for, then tell them, hey, that wasn't something that we have. That's not something you can do. We don't have that function. Like that's not valid, basically. So all of these things are all error handling in one way or another. And so actually we've been doing error handling. And so there's just, I guess the point I'm trying to make again is error handling comes in a lot of different forms. We can do explicit error handling, like what we've been doing with these begin and rescue stuff. We could also do like accounting for different edge cases that might bring up errors for our users or issues for our users. Maybe not exact errors, but like issues and stuff. And we can do if else stuff, etc. Does that idea make sense with everybody here? Cool. Because this is actually stuff that like, so I've found that when writing programs or when creating software, creating the general, like whatever it is, the application or the code for whatever it is you're building, that's actually relatively easy. By relatively easy, like that's going to be what takes the fastest. Accounting for all these different edge cases and error handling for all the different situations that might come up, that's what takes a long time. It's like, what if the user happens to do this specific thing, but didn't do this other thing? Or what if it was vice versa? Or what if it was this? Or what if they didn't input anything? Or what if blah, 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 you know? And so that's really what takes up a lot of time and a lot of things to figure out is handling all of those different edge cases. And that's why things like that, like in the real world, you end up having those 1 in a million scenarios where you might be that 1 in a million that happened to find that issue. That's why those things come up because it's really hard to account for all those different situations and all those different errors that could come up based on any number of factors, given however complex your thing is. Does that make sense with everybody? Yeah. So I hope that everyone here kind of has a better appreciation for like when an error comes up. Yeah, it is. They didn't error handle for that for whatever reason. However, they error handled for a lot of other things, and for whatever reason, that's something that didn't get caught. You know, so cut them a little slack, kind of thing, in a sense. Not yeah. You guys kind of get what I'm saying. Adrian, you have a question.
I have a question in regards to you guys. I know you guys did like the Half Aloha um menu or website.
Mhm.
Was there a case when you guys made that where there was an error you guys had to handle as a team, either like before you guys launched it or like during the launch or when you guys were actually using the application?
Yes, there was a lot of errors that we had to account for. Trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, I have so much notes. Like there's still stuff from the concert that happened that I'm like, it wasn't for the most part, it went smooth. Like I think we had like out of let's say 1,000 orders, maybe we had like 5 issues, which isn't bad. But to me, those 5 issues are little situations. Those are the, I guess, 5 out of 1,000 instead of 1 out of 1 million. Those are the 5 out of 1,000 that we didn't account for. I can't think of what it was off the top of my head. I have notes on it. I actually have a lot of tickets of different things that I want to handle on it. But yeah, there are. And actually here to show you guys kind of what I like to use. So within software engineering, um, every place that I've worked at, they have some sort of what's it called? These things are called like Kanban boards, I think is what it's called. Like I think at the other teams that I worked at, we use like Jira. We use that Jira, yeah, Jira by Atlassian, and it looks something like this. So the idea with this is that we want to track. So I guess a little bit of a tangent again. Most places that I've worked at as a software engineer, they do something called an agile work environment. All that means is that there's definitely a lot more to it, but the basic idea is they work in 2 week sprints. They want to and and there's a kind of a lot that I could say about it. But the basic idea of how it works is given this 2 weeks, I'm going to give you 2 weeks worth of work. It's your job to get that work done within that 2 weeks, and then for us to kind of deploy the code at the end. And how you get that work done kind of it doesn't necessarily like when, where to meet doesn't matter ultimately. I want you to get that done during that time frame. And so that's how a lot of it worked. And so the way it worked kind of even more than that was I was given X amount of tickets. Depending on, and so what a ticket is like if you look at this picture, like this is one ticket, this is one ticket, this is another ticket. Depending on how long one of these tickets take, that's going to determine how much work I can get for this 2 week period. And so that's something that we do beforehand. So we do something called a sprint planning. The idea with the sprint planning is exactly what it sounds. You plan what the sprint's going to look like. And then within the sprint, once you've kind of do your sprint planning, you then start your sprint and it's your job to work on the projects. So everything for the most part is probably going to start in like a to-do column. Okay, cool. This is all the stuff that I have to do. When I start working on my ticket, I'm going to move it to in progress. That's where obviously I'm working on the stuff. As soon as I'm done with it or like I'm like it's ready to go and I want it to get tested for all those different edge cases and whatever, I want to get it tested, I would move it into like a code review or a QA. You'll hear QA, which stands for quality assurance, which is basically just the people who are going to test out your code. And so basically you want your code to be tested. If it's good to go, it'll move to done. If it's not, then it'll move back to in progress. And then once all that stuff is done, you move on to your next ticket. Do that. Move on to your next ticket, etc. And so that's really the way that almost every place that I've worked at, that's the way they do their stuff. And so kind of building upon that to keep track of what it is that I'm working on or whatever, that's kind of what I do as well. And so I actually think this is out of date. I need to update it. But for example, here's like a list of different things that I either errors that I'm trying to account for or different situations that I want to fix or things to make the user experience better or whatever it may be. So let's see, what is this? Yeah, so make sure that if a user processes a refund or added an item and the user paid, then it's automatically saved and the admin doesn't have to manually click save changes for it to happen. So I remember exactly what that is. Basically, instead of the admin having to click save again, it should just automatically get done kind of thing. There's a bunch of different little things like that. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent, but to kind of answer your question, Adrian, I guess to go back to it, yes, there was a lot of things. But really there was like for the most part it all went smooth, but yeah, there's a lot of things that can be improved. Sorry, long-winded answer. Questions, comments? Oh, go ahead, Adrian. Sorry.
I was gonna say thank you. My bad.
No, I got you. Okay. So let's see. I'm thinking. Yeah, the error handling that I was originally gonna have you guys do before this was I wanted you guys to add some conditions here for if the user enters something that isn't like whatever it's supposed to do. So like for example, for the number, theoretically it's a bunch of integers. For the name, it's a string. So like if the class of it isn't a string, then theoretically I wanted you guys to add some error handling. But instead, I think you guys get the idea and how we're doing different types of error handling all throughout this stuff. So instead, won't give any homework for tonight. And tomorrow, actually, we will start on what did I want to go through tomorrow? So I want to start on, we're going to start talking about OOP, which is object-oriented programming. That's where we're going to start. This is actually going to be a big concept because most programming languages, at least that we're going to use, they all do OOP. Yeah, so we'll get through that when we get that. Cool. Yeah, so I guess we'll just wrap up then. Does anybody have any comments, questions about anything in general before I kind of let you guys go? Yes, Adrian.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So the sorry, it's just in regards to like what I saw. So long story short, for those screenshots that I put the like during the weekend,
Yeah.
man, what did I ask? Uh, I was asking for like actionable like roadmaps for the coders for 2025 because like in terms of recent activity, like AI has been really good in terms of like productivity and helping with productivity, but it can also be like a source of over reliance for some people.
Hmm.
Like when it comes to education, for example, like if it's an essay, like there are so many cases of people like high school students using essays or using ChatGPT to write their essays, and obviously it doesn't look really pretty with that. So I'm like asking like how does this as a coder or as someone who's going to be a trying to be a coder for 2025, how would you act as when it comes to AI? Because we can use it as a learning tool by itself, but if we are over reliant on it, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a
Yeah.
way where what's your opinion on it? That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
ask with
yeah,
it.
yeah, of course. So here's how I recommend you guys use it. I understand that AI tools are out there, and I think I might have mentioned this towards the beginning. I know that there's so many different AI tools out there, and I'm not against you guys using it to learn, but that's exactly what I want you guys to use it for, to learn and to help you guys break things down. And because I'm actually, to be honest with you guys, and towards the ending of the class, I'm going to show you guys different AI tools that I use to help me to be a better, more productive programmer. And so I will show you guys that later. I don't want to show you guys that just yet because I want you guys to actually, I guess, write the code in the sense, you know. And so, but one thing right off the back that I would recommend you guys, yeah, how I would recommend to use it is, for example, if I'm learning a new topic. So let's say, mm, I just showed you guys this case one thing. So I'm going to give it this code actually. So I'm going to say like my instructor just shared this code for a contact menu CLI. He's using case when instead of if else. I don't really understand how it works. Can you please break it down simply for me to understand? Obviously, you can ask it different questions depending on what you're doing, but I'm just thinking of right off the back, like this is a way that I would use it. If I didn't understand how to do something or what something is, I'm literally going to come here and I'm going to ask it to break it down. I love using AI for that because a lot of times it gives you feedback immediately rather than like having to Google it. Yes, I could have went like, hey, what is case when in Ruby? I for sure could have done this, and it would have given me a decent answer, I'm sure. Yeah, so this isn't bad. However, I really like how like I can literally share it the code and then like, okay, cool. So this is like a normal if else. This is the case one version where it's like, okay, case choice. Ruby gives a shortcut for when you're checking one variable against many possible values. So when one, when two, when three. So case choice means look at the value of choice. When one means if choice equals one, run this block. Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. And if I didn't understand it, I'd be like, okay, I still don't really understand it. Can you give me another example, another simple example to better help me understand? And this is literally what I would do. This is my recommendation for you guys. Okay, cool. Yeah, weather equals rainy. Case weather. When sunny, wear sunglasses. When rainy, bring an umbrella, etc. Whatever, whatever, whatever. And here's the else if version. Exactly. And so it kind of breaks it down. And so I love using AI for this kind of things. This is my recommendation for how you guys would use it for this specific part of the course. And I think in general, I still like if you guys should look at the history of all the different things, my girlfriend uses it too. So that's why she asked it a bunch of different whatever. But like literally a lot of the things that I use AI for is to have a conversation about about different options I have for implementing things or researching different things. And that's the way that I use it. It's like, I didn't know how to, I don't know. like this specific situation, how could I maybe handle this better? Or how could I optimize it to be a little faster for our users or whatever it may be? And I'm literally going to be explicit. There's no like special sauce for how I'm going to write this stuff out. I'm literally going to say, okay, I was just shared this code. He's using this instead of what I'm used to. I don't understand. How would it work? And that's like, just be straight up with it and it'll give you a pretty good answer, I'd say, most of the time. I do not recommend you're like, hey, build me this thing, do this exercise for me. Because then another thing to note with AI is that a lot of times AI tries to like be extra. And by extra, if I gave it the same exercise, it's probably going to be doing some complex things that we haven't touched on. Because a lot of times AI kind of tries to go like above and beyond, unless you explicitly tell it, just do this or do this in the simplest way possible. It'll probably give you some complex solution that like you might not fully understand just yet, unless you have it break it down or whatever. Sorry, does that kind of answer your question, Adrian?
Yeah, because I was thinking about the moral standpoint as like a coder, because I don't want it to do the things for me, but at the same time, I need something to help me I guess the best word I can just say I've been using it for is articulation.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, well, you already said it. Like you make it so that way you can understand it, and then if someone asks you what is happening in this code, you yourself can understand it without the AI or being over reliant on AI or stuff like that.
exactly. And you know,
Yeah.
my thing with this, because it's so tempting, I feel like, as students or in general for this class or in general, like just as students in general to like use it because it's something that's super powerful. Obviously, AI is super powerful. It's something that it seems like it's just like I can learn anything, I feel like, or I can do almost anything, I feel like, But the way that I want you guys to think about it is eventually you guys are going to be in an interview process or talking to someone about this stuff. And if you don't know what it is that you're trying to say, or like you're trying to say something and you don't know, more than likely those other people are going to know. And then you're either not going to land the job or you're going to get fired because you don't know how to do what it is that you got hired to do or whatever it may be. And so that's where I really recommend that you guys take the time to learn it. Don't make this stuff write the code for you. I'm not saying anybody here is doing it, but that's my reasoning behind why I really want you guys to understand the concepts, do the deliberate practice, things like that, rather than just have AI just do it for you. Because at the end of the day, you not understanding it, yes, it might get it done quick right now, but down the line, who is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt me. It's going to hurt you. And so that's why I highly recommend using these tools to help you to learn. Because also the other thing though is you guys have a huge advantage of being able to use it to learn. When I took the code class, we didn't have ChatGPT. It wasn't something yet. We didn't have Gemini or Claude or whatever. And so I had to actually, look up online using Google if I wanted to look something up, which isn't the hardest, but still I didn't have like I could just ask it a question and it kind of gives me an answer, or stuff like that. And so that's where take advantage of these tools that you guys have. But that's exactly what they are, is they're tools to help augment you. They're not here to replace you. Yeah, so that's my little rant on it. That's truly the way I feel because that's how I use it. And once you guys understand the fundamentals and you guys feel confident in writing code and all that, then that's where yes, you can use AI for more things. I'll be honest, I use AI for a lot more, like it helps me to write code a lot more than what I do in class. But that's because I already, for the most part, understand what's going on. I feel comfortable with it and I'm able to proofread and check it. I'm not just being like, okay, do this, and I don't know like how that actually works. I don't want to do that. I try not to at the least, at the most. But yeah. Questions, comments about that? Solid. Okay. Yeah, I'm actually happy that I did that. I wanted to, if I don't think I explicitly went through kind of how I would recommend to use this stuff. So that's what I wanted to do. And another cool thing about ChatGPT actually that I found is that I can create a link and I can send this, let's say, in exercises. And so now here's like, I can say example of how to use AI to help break things down / learn new concepts. And then any one of you guys can now go to that link and you guys can see it, which I think is really cool. Cool. So on that note, let's go ahead and wrap up for real this time. me just make sure there's nothing else I quickly wanted to touch on. Oh, shucks. One thing, okay, I'm gonna task you guys to remind me tomorrow, start of class. So you guys need to give yourself a class name. I keep forgetting to do that. I meant to do that like today or last week Monday. But so for example, just for you guys to brainstorm or think of it before the next class. Lana's class, so every class that I have that I teach, or every class that I've taught ever, even for Actualize in the States, they all give themselves a class name. And so, for example, Lana's class was Chamorro Chips. The reason they were Chamorro Chips was because it's usually like a pun. So, for example, like Chamorro Chips, it's you guys are Chamorro. Chips is like a computer chip. So you put it together, it's kind of like Chamorro Chips, but then there's also like the actual cookie, the brand Chamorro Chips. And so I did talk to Chamorro Chips, and they're cool with us using the brand. And so and potentially we're probably also going to do shirts for you guys. So for example, Lana's class, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab Lana's class shirt. Or actually I have it right here. Let me pull it up. I have it on my laptop. I forgot. Where's my stuff? Yeah. So if you aren't already, here's the Code School's Instagram. Oh, there's Lana right there. Right here. So here's what her class shirt was. So we can see, sorry, Lana, didn't mean to put you on the spot. But here's Chamorro Chips, and so um we did ask them explicitly, and they're cool with it. And so here's like the back of it, which can I zoom in? So we can see it's a little bit blurry. We can see the nutrition facts serving size was 6 because there was 6 of them. It was 16 weeks. They wrote infinity lines of codes. Bug fixes is the daily requirement. Creativity, problem solving, debugging, etc. Hunger for learning, coffee, syntax errors, 0%. Um, Based on a 20-hour work week, which is kind of what we're doing. Ingredients, so there's me and then all the rest of her class. Allergen was may contain homework, etc. And so we'll probably do something for your class as well. I want to try to do something for each class, something like this. And so so yeah, there's Lana's. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, that was if you guys want, this is actually you can see Lana's presentation where she killed it. Lana did really good. But yeah, so think of it. I'll give you guys like, I don't know, like 30 minutes to brainstorm together. And then eventually I'll give you guys some time as well in the next week or so to think of a design. Like Lana's class kind of came up with this design themselves. And then yeah, you guys can we'll probably I know I think yeah, we'll do a shirt for you guys too. We'll do one as well. Yeah, so just think of that, brainstorm other ideas. So the class that I just taught in the States, I think they named themselves Java the Hut. There's my class was named Ruby Loops, like kind of like Fruit Loops, but we're rubies. And they put like literally my shirt was a cereal bowl with a bunch of rubies inside of it. And then we had like a cereal box and some other stuff on it. It's like Ruby Loops because yeah, you get it. So yeah, a lot of times that's the way it is. It could be kind of as long as you guys all agree upon it, I don't really, it's up to you guys. Yeah, so think of that. Just food for thought. Um, yeah, that's what I have. Cool. That is so I'm gonna task one of you guys or all of you guys to remind me tomorrow. I will give you guys like 30 minutes at the start of class to just kind of brainstorm together and talk through it, see what you guys want to be named. And then later, maybe like next week, Monday or something like that, I'll give you guys like an hour to like brainstorm ideas and how it's gonna look. Hopefully someone here has some drawing experience. So that way you guys can draw it or lay it out or whatever, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, for next week. Cool. So on that note, I will go ahead and let you guys go. I'll hang out for a few minutes if you guys have any questions or want to go through anything. But other than that, you guys have a great night. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
You guys.
All right, guys. Good night. Stay.